Welcome, business leaders and listeners. Welcome to Business Today with Wes. You'll notice a bit of a refreshed format. We're excited about bringing you continued topics on business, creating sustained outcomes, and building trust as we navigate through the business world and a number of challenges. To help us do that today, I'm thrilled that we have Victor Casalino with us. He is the America's VP and CFO of Microsoft and has a wealth of experience across 3 decades of career experience in business. Today, we're covering a number of topics around how to create long-term value and sustained outcomes, building trust along the way through a dynamic environment. And with that, Victor, welcome to Business Today with Wes.
Thank you very much, Wes. Very happy to be here, and thanks for that intro. Just by way of context for the audience, I'm the head of finance for the Americas commercial business for Microsoft. It's a significant chunk of business for the company. Very exciting times with the AI transformation, generative AI transformation now. But in general, the market in technology is quite dynamic, always challenging, and always a great place to be, a fun place to be because of that. Thanks.
Well, thanks, Victor. As you know better than anyone, today's marketplace is global and it's evolving. We've both been on the road traveling internationally just over the past couple of months, and the world and the marketplace is fast-paced. And so maybe the place to start for our business leaders is how to maintain pace and focus on delivering a business strategy in today's market, but also being agile, being able to navigate through change with a bit of agility so that along that process, we create sustainable outcomes and we build trust.
Agility, the ability to understand your market, the marketplace, to understand the competition, to read into what's happening around you, and have the proper response, an engaged response. It's a critical component of any successful business. I think it's a very durable, evergreen truth. At the core of agility is first understanding how you compete. My sense is what are your strengths? How is that you make a difference? How is that you address customers' needs? How you deliver value? But very, very closely together with that is the ability to be disciplined on how you go about things. Otherwise, you can become very distracted. You can be unfocused on the things that you follow, on the things that you are zeroing in. Disciplined execution, the ability to prioritize what is important, having the courage, the fortitude of saying yes to some things and no to some others. It's a critical mark of successful leadership. And you see it time and time again. I don't think it's possible anymore to have incrementality.
And Victor, on your point, to really navigate through a lot of change and to be agile requires focus. Requires focus not only for us as business leaders, but to convey that across the team so that we're actually accomplishing a longer term strategy, even as we're sort of dealing with the day-to-day noise. It might be an issue that pops up we have to deal with, but staying focused on that long-term strategy. How do you see that, and how do you navigate just the number of distractions that can potentially take us off course?
Clarity from the leadership matters a lot. Like defining who you are and making sure that all your actions are accretive to that mission, to those objectives. And I think leaders play a huge role on that at all levels of the organization. Of course, at a broad company level, you have a mission statement, you have a guiding point for who you are and what you do. But at any levels of the organization, you do require to make it very simple, very clear what the organization is about. I think the role of a leader is to provide that clarity, to make it simple for people to understand what that particular organization or the company is all about, and making sure that you continue to push people towards the edges so that we can innovate eventually.
It's such a great point about leadership. getting our team aligned, focused on the future, but also navigating as changes arise. Let me take us to sort of a related point, which is the long-term horizon that we all need to have in order to really initiate and accomplish sustained outcomes. And in doing that, many times technology plays a key role. How do you see sort of the blending together of technology capabilities to help us accomplish a more sustainable long-term goal?
I fundamentally believe that all durable competitive advantage is anchored on technology. That is what eventually creates scale, and it allows you to continue to move upwards on the value curve, if you will. So technology plays a huge role because it frees up resources to focus on more relational, analytic, more harder decisions that need to be made in a way by automating transactional type work. And I think companies that have been able to grasp and understand this in a more thorough way are the ones that eventually have succeeded beyond all expectations. I think the advancement of AI or generative AI is playing also a huge role, disruptive, if you will. We are still in early stages. I was in a conversation with someone in the engineering teams, and one of the ideas here is to make sure that the way that we work, for example, on finance professionals using Excel, might change because of AI. Like the things that you took for granted that you needed to grind through things might be served for analysts or financial professionals. And so that might change the way that we work. That is actually one of the bets that everyone is making, I guess, to some extent. And that will free up more human capital, more ingenuity to pursue bigger goals, have the time and the consideration for more difficult decisions, and also for more innovation.
And everything you just went through, I agree with, and it requires discipline, requires patience in order to generate the long-term value that we all might expect as business leaders, as technology and even disruptive technologies come in. How do you see sort of the conversation across a C-suite or even in a boardroom to sort of capture the vision, but also to demonstrate progress sufficient to keep people on board, that we're moving in the right direction, and it can also take time?
It does require, without a doubt, any transformation or any investments at scale that we may do in technology or any other matter or other subject for that matter, does require the commitment from the C-suite. I mean, there has to be clarity in what is that the enterprise, the company is pursuing, what are the strategic goals, and commitment, like real commitment from the CEO, CIO, CFO of the organization, the different business leaders to a specific outcome. Without it, you wouldn't get traction, that's for sure. The second thing is you need to be able to get some wins earlier, reward the people who are taking the risks, reward the people who are jumping in early in the process, but also have successes, because without them, people lose momentum, they lose the strength to keep going. And having the right plan. Again, I don't think I'm saying anything new here. Any professional in project management will tell you it's super important that we set our goals clearly, that we give us the space to have some wins. And I would say the most important thing is having clarity in what that we're pursuing. Yeah. Understanding needs, having an understanding of how technology in this case will disrupt, will change the way that we work and the way, most importantly, that we serve our customers. I think that last part sometimes may be overlooked. Whatever it is that we do, it has to be focused on how are we going to serve our customers better.
Such a great point. And so let me take it to another angle, which is, how do you read the right signals in order to get timing right on transformative change, whether it's reinventing a business model, redesigning a key process to unlock productivity, or maybe it's to manage risk.
The burning platform, if you will, is what drives those processes and that innovation, if you will. And probably you could say, hey, can we get ahead of the burning platform? Let's try to get ahead of that curve and not wait for a burning platform to start transforming and innovating. We use these words, in years past of digital transformation. How are we going? Can we do that ahead of the curve? The reality I have found is that oftentimes it comes to you before you go to it. Digital transformation oftentimes has come out of necessity. You find yourself selling something very different from what you used to sell before, and that requires a different level of services, a different level of billing, perhaps engines or tools that you don't even have right now because you were in a slightly different market, and those things change over time. Sometimes you don't realize and you don't fully realize it, and you end up in a different business, if you will, perhaps with not all the tools to support it. And that's part of, I would say, the innovation journey. And so I guess being able to take a couple of steps back and recognize where your own business, your own direction, where your company is moving, and consider that, and perhaps try to see around the curve ahead and have the fortitude and the presence to evangelize with the leadership of your company, which is hard. Let's not be naive. It's very hard to convince someone to invest when that market opportunity or that project is not fully there. It's just an idea. It's a little bit of a combination of things. Oftentimes, again, in my personal experience, is the issue comes to you, and you need to react and act fast, and becomes a little bit of a fire drill. But sometimes I think people are able to recognize that something is changing, that the underlying business is changing, and therefore we need to change with it. We need to prepare ourselves. We need to prepare our companies to support, drive, and engage with customers in this new way.
Well, I love the point. And before we pivot to a trust point, because all of this requires trust in order to really scan the landscape, which is where we started, and be agile against change, to have a longer term view about the value creation, the role of technology, and this point of bringing everyone else along as we do that, responding to the signals and the timing to get the investment right. All of that takes trust. All of that takes trust
Yes.
to both inside the boardroom, the management team, the C-suite, across our teams. Requires buy-in, but it also requires buy-in with our external stakeholders, whether it's suppliers or customers or capital providers. How do you see that sort of angle to it, building and keeping trust through this period of change?
I think trust is a core pillar, a tenet on whatever we pursue in life. I think it's a critical component of leadership. I would say it's probably the single most important thing that a leader can get to do in order to move the teams, to move the organization, to move a large parts of the business in one direction. Trust is the ultimate accelerator. I think being an authentic leader, being able to recognize the situation for what it is, the market, your own company situation, your own competitive advantage, and decide with courage, which is another thing that I think it's an important quality to any leader, with courage to face the market, face your current situation, and convey that authentically are assets to any organization. And I think successful leaders are able to do that. It's not even about transparency. There are things that you can share. There are things that you cannot share. It's about intent. It's about conveying with clarity, transparency, what is that you are personally about, what are your values, what you stand for, and being able to live those values. And that is actually what enables success in the long run. I think culture, a culture of trust, is one of the most important competitive advantages that any company can have in in any industry, without a doubt.
Your points are so inspiring, Victor, that trust is action-oriented. It starts from the inside and it grows out, whether it's inside the organization or inside ourselves. That authenticity and the genuineness and the courage to deal with things when maybe it doesn't go well, but we nonetheless deal with it in a trustworthy way. Trust is also something that enables us to have a much broader impact. And for this, I want to sort of pivot to alliances and partnerships. Of course, PwC and Microsoft has a long-standing partnership and alliance relationship. It's a critical business relationship for us. When we announced our PwC billion-dollar investment in AI, much of our work is done with Microsoft, and we're very proud of that relationship. How do you see sort of that broader piece of business leaders accomplishing more through partnerships and alliances so that each of us, as we deliver for our customers, as we deliver for our stakeholders, as in PwC's case, as we build trust and solve important problems, doing it at a broader scale with others. How do you see that coming together going forward?
Yeah, we had a chat about this before, and I love, I don't know if it's a mission statement or more, yes, a mission statement for PwC, which I think it's amazing. Wanted to be the most trusted company working in the most important problems. I think it's very inspiring. There is a lot of power in bringing and working with partners. In our company, we do that. We go to markets through partners, and that relationship is an important one. And you want to do it with partners that you can trust. It's an important thing that working relationship is a deep one, and it's a one that is anchored in truth, that is anchored in shared values, and in shared behaviors. It's not just the values, but the way that you act.
Victor, thank you. Just as we bring this to a close, there's three really big important themes here. We'll accomplish more together through alliances, through partnerships. All of that's rooted in trust, and it enables us to deliver, in many times an uncertain world, long-term, sustainable value. I want to thank you for joining today and being part of the conversation.
Thank you very much, Wes. It's been a pleasure. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. And business leaders and listeners, thank you, and we'll see you next time.